I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, but I am running out of things to make videos on because at this point I've just made videos on almost everything that I currently own. Got a couple of things in the mail if Big Bad Toy Store ever actually ships my order rather than processing it for however many days it takes them every time. But yeah, I'm running out of stuff to cover, which is kind of a good thing. My goal for a while now has been to have a video on every single figure that I own. And I'm definitely getting close to finishing that. And also, as a bonus, once I finish making a video on everything that I own, that means I only have to worry about making videos about stuff that comes in or possibly revisiting other stuff. And like, I feel like at that point, maybe I'll, go back to doing videos that are a little bit more complex, because then I won't be able to do the 2 videos a week thing that I've been doing. So something for you all to look forward to is less frequent videos. Isn't that great? But anyway, yeah, we've already looked at Planet X Vulcun on the channel. There is a video. I will try to remember to link it. And it's one of the very early videos that I did. So it's, what, like 8 years ago, give or take. So yeah, it has been a while since we've looked at Vulcun. And it was one of my early videos, so the formatting was way different. I never showed transformations or anything like that. But I have an excuse to talk about him again, because this is the G2 Colors version that Planet X did. I think this was a convention exclusive, and I missed the boat on this one when it first came out. I already owned a regular Vulcun at the time, and wasn't like, it's kind of like, oh, I've got this one, I'll stick with that one. But then as time went on, it's just like, oh, I really wish I could have gotten that one, because I really do like I've said this before, but G2 Grimlock was my Grimlock going up. I always wanted to get G1 Grimlock, never had the opportunity. But when they re-released him as part of G2, I got him then. And so, yeah, that blue T-Rex was my Grimlock as a child. And I really do have a fondness for the G2 Grimlock color scheme. I'm genuinely surprised, and I said this during the G2 Concept Grimlock Studio Series, whatever they're called, Generation Selects, I think, G2 Concept Grimlock, or Toxitron, I don't know. Point is, video where they did the Studio Series 86 Grimlock mold in the G2 Concept colors, I commented on how it's kind of a surprise that they didn't do the blue one. And, maybe they eventually will. I'll buy that too. Why not? I've got the, right as of this recording, I've got the Comic Colors Generation Selects, or whatever it is, Grimlock on pre-order from Hasbro Pulse. So that'll make 4 versions of Studio Series 86 Grimlock that I own once that comes in. I will absolutely do a 5th if they do G2, like blue G2 colors. But anyway, love the color scheme, love Planet X Vulcun, and really wanted to get this and could not find it anywhere because it was way beyond being on the aftermarket at that point. But as you can see, I have it now. And the whole reason I have it now is because just about like a year and a half ago, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, I don't remember, one of the more well-known customizers out there, Grimlockamus, was selling off some stuff, and one of the things he was selling off was G2 Planet X Grimlock, and I still had my regular Planet X Vulcun at the time, but I could not pass up the opportunity to get this. I forget how much he was asking for it, but it was a very reasonable price, and I jumped on it, and I got it, and then I sold off my regular Vulcun because I don't need 2 Vulcans. Because unlike the Studio Series Grimlock mold, I don't feel compelled to own every version of the Planet X Vulcun mold. But I really like having this. And now this it's basically the same thing, but all of the gray is now blue. That's basically it. I did get repro labels, or rather, it's a long story. I had repro labels already for Vulcun, so I applied them to this guy. And it's, same deal, because the repro labels are mostly just like these glowy bits for like the little dots and stuff like that. So didn't have to worry about color matching because it's not like there weren't any stickers going on like what were originally gray bits. So he does have Reaper labels, but yeah, it's Planet X Vulcun in blue. And I really, really like this guy. I mean, the mold is great, but I really love these colors. I like how the blue has a very slight metallic-y sheen to it. And it works really well with the kind of metallic-y sheen that the gold has too, both in the paint and the plastic. I think maybe this is derived from the metallic version of Vulcun that came out, which has this kind of premium sheen to it. I used to have the matte version, so that could be a factor too. But point is, this looks really good. I like that the blue is kind of like a darker, more muted color, because it still gives off the blue vibes of G2 Grimlock, but it works a little bit better with the kind of darker video game aesthetic and the slightly darker gold that they used here. But you still get some carryover, like the silver or the arms. Yeah. But design-wise, it's, as I said, it is just the same Planet X Vulcun. I'm noticing now there are some yellow paint flecks or something in the back here, which, whatever. Just noticing those now. No idea if it happened before or when I was transforming it. I don't think it's from when I was transforming it, but anyway. Yeah, this is Planet X Vulcun in blue, and it looks fantastic. Love the tones, love the colors, love the design. The molding is great, and it's a great figure in its own right, worth getting in any regard, however it may be available. I am curious, though, to see if maybe because they're doing War for Cybertron in Studio Series, I'm kind of wondering if maybe they eventually do Fall of Cybertron, and if they do that, maybe we'll get another official attempt at Fall of Cybertron Grimlock, because I would absolutely be all over that. But yeah, looks great. Articulation is the same as Vulcun, where this kind of armature lets you raise the tail up and down a little bit, and it also can bend at these three joints, so you can curve it in either to either side, or you can do like an alternating kind of jaggy thing, or have it be straight. It's up to you. The forearms can rotate forward and backward and go in and out and bend at the elbow, though the elbow bend is really, really stiff, but you can bend it. And then the two fingers on the hand are connected, but they can rotate up and down a bit. I don't want to force it, but they can rotate. The legs can rotate forward and backward, though they do kind of knock into stuff, so you can't go too far forward or backward unless you kind of flex things a little bit past this piece up here. They don't really go in and out. Well, they go in, but they don't really go out, just because of how these hinges are lined up and this piece here. If you untab this, because it does tab in, you untab this and bring it down on its own little hinge, you can kind of bring the leg out a bit more that way. But for the purposes of being a T-Rex, this, I believe, is supposed to stay tapped in to the hip. So not much out, in and out. You get rotation here. You get this joint, which I believe I mentioned in the original Vulcun video, is how I prefer to orient the leg for T-Rex mode, because I think it just mixes things up a bit. Though with this version, it does interrupt the blue a bit, so you can close that up and instead use the elbow joint for the robot mode as like a knee. You can double bend it if you want. So that's kind of how you can see the difference there. It makes the legs look a little longer too if you use that joint, but it does break up the blue. But there's that. The foot can also pivot forward and back a bit, and then you can move the toes or claws up and down. So pretty decent for what it is, posability on the legs. And much like the tail, you actually get a pretty decent amount of movement on the head. You've got the rotation here. The head can go up and down. But at the same time, there's a little slider here. If you pull this out, that allows the head to turn left and right a bit. It's not super significant, but it's enough to, make the, especially if you bring the curvature of the tail into it, it gives you a bit more of a curve to the dino mode, which I do like quite a bit. And the jaws can open that far, can close all the way. You can rotate the tongue up and down. That's really stiff on this one, but you can do it. So yeah, he is pretty posable, like in dino mode, which is really cool. And he just looks fantastic, and it's Planet X Vulcun. It's Planet X Vulcun in blue, as I've said many times, and that in its own right is really cool. Now, size-wise, he is a big dinosaur. There he is with Dinobot and Overprime and Samus. So yeah, he's a big fellow. Not necessarily masterpiece scale, if that even applies to Fall of Cybertron stuff, but pretty big. And then there is Burnout. So there he is with a Deluxe, and he is much bigger than a Deluxe. And finally, here he is with the Duck Tank. As I'm thinking about it, I don't know that Planet X Vulcun ever got a Duck Tank comparison before, so there we go. All right, now, before we transform this into a bipedal humanoid robot, if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done, which understandable if you don't, because I feel like my own enthusiasm and quality has been declining over time, but if you like any of that and you want to support me, I do have a Patreon or Ko-fi, links to both at the end of the video as well as down in the description. Otherwise, you can always support by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, typical YouTube stuff. Now, turning this guy into Grimlock is it's a little tricky in a couple of spots if you're not familiar with this mold, but still doable. Also, the plastic is a little creaky on this guy, I think partially due to the age, but also possibly due to just the makeup of it, because I do think this plastic is slightly different in terms of chemical composition and structure than the regular gray version of Vulcun. I don't think it's brittle, but it's a little creaky, a little unsettling. And now, to start, I'm going to first off just close that up, get the head out of the way. I want to pop this gold panel up here, and this is going to be a little tricky because it's pegged in really solidly, so that's why I've got L Spudger. Just going to try to pry this up. Well, let's try this. So I'll get these out of the way first and foremost. So these little bits untab from up in here. It's hard to see, but there's like a little kind of rectangular peg in there that tabs in here. And then this double hinges and shifts down. Actually, we'll just rotate that 180 degrees while we're at it. This will give us a little bit more room to work up here. So rotate around, and then unpeg this, and once again, shift it down. Now, this whole assembly here is pegged in here, like right around here, and also up around here. So I'm going to try to pull this up a bit, and I'm hoping that, yeah, okay. By popping that up, now that's popped up more, so I can get a better angle on it. Boy, this is... whoop, sorry. This panel is really, really in there. There we go. Whew. Unsettling. So, that takes care of that. Now this can kind of fold back and out of the way a little bit. So it's these bits here that were tabbed over these pieces here, and then these pegs down here were tabbed in right around here. So it all comes together very solidly, but like maybe a little too solidly, especially these bits. But we did it. We got it. So that is taken care of. This can come up, and let's compact all of this. So going to get this flap here. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see more what I'm doing. So this flap, I'm just rotating it to get a better grip on it, but this flap pulls up like that. That gives clearance to untab this section, and that can swing back. This can untab. This just tabs in like that. That can kind of come out a bit. So this whole thing can untab. This swings around 180 degrees on this rotational joint here. Then with this all done, do we want to fold this in? No, we're not going to fold this in just yet. We're just going to leave this exploded for a second. So with this exploded, we can now untab the robot mode chest and then swing it up on a double hinge. And these tabs will peg into the underside of the torso here. So just swing this up, and this will tab in place. There we go. That gets all of that out of the way. We'll just bring the legs/arms up like that for now. Oh, I did not realize how inappropriate this was going to look. Well, thankfully most of it's off camera. So what we're going to do is split the tail down the middle, but not along the left and right, but along the top and bottom. And this is definitely requiring a spudger because it tabs in really securely towards the tip of the tail. So I'm just going to spudge these. There we go. That is all untabbed, and now we can swing these out. So this is on a double armature, so it's normally like this for the dyno mode. Now you want to swing it around like this. And then the tail, the tip folds in, then the middle section folds in, and that tucks all that away. And then on this side, it's the same deal. This is more like this in robot mode. So now we're going to fold in the tip, fold in the midsection, and then fold this in. And there we go. Now for the getting the tail pieces situated. It's a little bit tricky, a little bit scary in places, but there are ways to do it a little bit more effortlessly. If you rotate the waist 90 degrees, you can then push this armature up past the hip, past the back, and that kind of takes care of everything. But I think I'm actually going to split the legs first. There we go. And I'm going to bend this knee a little bit differently. So I'm going to bring this up. It's on like a clicky double hinge. So bring that up, and now that should get the hip out of the way enough that this joint here can clear the hip without having to flex too much. It's supposedly designed to be flexible, but I still don't like to put any undue stress on it. So with that done, now we can straighten out the leg. I'm going to rotate the waist 180 degrees now so that it's at a 90-degree angle going the other way. And now this one is a little bit trickier because this is as far over as the tail section goes, and that puts it really kind of in the path of everything. But once again, going to fold the knee kind of back and out of the way a little bit, and then swing this around. And from this angle, you can kind of see how this armature flexes a bit to get past this, but it does get past. And with the torso rotated like this, it just gives you a little bit more in terms of space to kind of get this past all of this. It does still flex, unquestionably, but it flexes less, which is why I do the 180-degree turn. Okay. So, with that done, and rotate the waist back into position, and we'll finish up the legs. So we want to take this assembly here, and this will rotate around and bring the foot out with it. Getting the foot in and out is a little bit tricky, but it does work. It feels not great to do because some plastic kind of scrapes against other plastic. But there we go. And flip out the heel, or kind of pseudo heel, and then the tail chunk back here. This folds in, this folds down, and then there is a, I know this looks messy, but it's really not that bad when you're not doing it in front of a camera. This tab just kind of sits in that little groove there. And that, there we go. And that gives him his mostly solid robot mode boot. And now on this side, this leg, same deal. I'm going to rotate this assembly around. It's just a little bit tricky with the foot because a lot of this plastic seems to want to scrape against other plastic in here, and I still have yet to figure out the best way to do this so that the plastic doesn't scrape against itself. Yeah, it just does not feel great to do. Yeah, there we go. It's something with this, like I didn't really notice it with the gray version either. It's something with this one, and maybe it is just the plastic consistency. I don't know, but it is a little bit unnerving trying to get those feet past everything else. But anyway, once again, foot down, and now with this one, this has the slightly different armature up here, so you just fold that in. Bring this down, and then unlike the other foot, there is actually a tab here that goes into a tab that's kind of on the inside, so it sits inside the foot and is just a little bit more secure. So there is that, and that is the legs all taken care of. So one thing I like to do is, because of this double joint, I like to angle the that gray piece forward just to change the center of gravity a bit. Looks like I already did it on this leg, so I just do that because I feel like that has him sitting a little bit more forward and just is a little bit more stable, because this way there's more boot towards the back, acting as like a heel support. So yeah, now let's do this backpack, because this backpack is definitely getting in the way. So I am noticing a stress possible crack in there, which I don't know if that was there before. Like right in there. Right there. That sucks. But looking at the way that pin was fired, I think it was Planet X that did that, because if you notice, on this side the pin is where it should be. On this side the pin's kind of going in that way. So good job, Planet X. Anyway, this dino head folds in and kind of slides in and down, and you can tell it works when the lower lip sits right behind the robot mode butt. But the dino head comes in. This closes up around the dino head, and then this panel comes down and pegs the torso together. This flap comes down. This flap comes down like this and kind of accordions in like that. And then what I like to do with the dino arms is just fold them up and tuck them kind of down and back, just to clean up the backpack a little bit. You can have them like this. You can have them up more. It's whatever. That's generally how I do it. And this is definitely crooked, and that's probably in no small part due to the fact that that pin was misfired. That also probably is due in part to the rotation being off ever so slightly. No, it's not the rotation. All right, it's just crooked. It is crooked, and I don't know what I can do about it. Stop getting in the way. Yeah, I don't know. Do not know what is making it so off-center, but it is what it is. There is not much I can do about that. Oh well. Okay. This train wreck is almost over with. So, I'm going to... with the shoulders, the arms are kind of down like this. For the dyno mode, you can actually hinge it up and back down on a secondary hinge to kind of just shift the arm up a little bit to raise the, like it kind of raises the shoulder line and brings the arm a little bit closer to the torso. So, do that. Bend the elbow on this arm too. And then for the there we go. And then for the fists, this can straighten out and it splits apart. And then these will kind of swing back like so, swing back and peg back together around the arm like a cuff and rotate the fist. I rotated the fist going into dyno mode because I felt like it just gave a little bit more clearance inside the dyno foot, but it's not a strictly speaking necessary step. It's just something I did. Like you can kind of see how it fits in there, whereas if it was rotated, get this out of the way. If it's rotated, that thumb is kind of close to being in the way. So it's just what I do as a precaution, but it's not strictly speaking necessary because this will still go together like that. But anyway, split it. Also get it lined up right. Bring this around, and have it all back together. And there we go. There is Planet X Vulcun in G2 Blue in robot mode. And as is always the case, as has been the case with Vulcun for a very long time, it is a very cool figure that looks great. And I really like it. The transformation, aside from the tail bits, is fine. This is one of those figures where it's like, you know, I've said before that like Planet X always seems to have one step during the transformation of just about any figure that's like, oh geez. And weirdly for their Grimlocks, it's always the legs that are the scariest part. But this one's not bad. The armatures are pretty flexy and strong feeling. And you can, as I showed, you can like rotate things to give yourself a little bit more room to work with, so you don't have to flex things as much. Still have to flex them, just not as much. But like the robot mode also looks great. I'm bummed by this, but I can't do anything to fix that because it's just something with the assembly that went wrong somewhere. But you know, ignoring the fact that this is somewhat off-kilter, it is really clean. It looks like Fall of Cybertron Grimlock's back, and the coloring is spectacular. He looks wonderful. And again, I really like this kind of duller metallic-y gold that they've got going on here, in addition to the slightly metallic-y blue. Really dig it. And the repro labels also help, because a lot of this stuff that's like this kind of glowy reddish pink is basically just this. It's just painted this color, which is fine, but I really think it looks even better when you get these kind of glowy symbols in there. It is a shame that the Repro Label set doesn't come with enough to completely do like all of these spots, like here and on the other side here to cover up those screw holes. I did use some of them that you're not intended to use for the dyno head to kind of cover up the screw holes on the sides of the dyno head that are unsightly. But yeah. Also, he has blue stickers for the eyes, as well as the red options, which I used. I used the red because the blue eyes on blue plastic just didn't look as striking to me. So yeah, but he looks really cool. The proportions are appropriately brutish. I really like this figure. I liked it before. I really like it in blue. It is great. And as for the head, it's the same head that Vanilla Vulcan has, where it's recognizable as Grimlock, but it's got this kind of weird cowl flavor to it. Also very stiff head rotation. I can't remember if it was like this when I first got it or if I tightened it myself and it's just like that now, but very stiff. I don't think this head sculpt is bad, and it does evoke G1 Grimlock, but I also think that the G1 Grimlock style head is a better sculpt for Grimlock. I don't know, something about this just reads like we tried really hard to make him look like an angry samurai. And I don't know that that works for Grimlock, unless, you know, the samurai aesthetic is actually part of it. So he has light piping. But there are shades of the G1 Grimlock in there. Also, I do like how angular the visor and faceplate are here. That looks nice. But as you saw, the head is on a ball joint, so it can look up and down. You can tilt left and right, and you can look around. You can go pretty much all the way around. This is very stiff. I don't think I'm ever going to do this again, but you can rotate the head all the way around. As for the arms, they can rotate 360. They've got the double hinges in here, so you can go out on that hinge, or you can go up on that hinge. So you've got options. This panel can kind of hinge up and out of the way, so you can go up a little bit further depending on which joint you're using. The biceps do rotate. You get that one joint that I was using for the dyno mode that goes that far. You've got the elbow that goes that far, and you can use both joints together to get a double bend that goes it's past 90, but it's not super far past 90. But still, decent elbows. The wrists do swivel, and you get opening and closing fingers. The waist, as you saw during transformation, does rotate. And the dyno head doesn't lock in anywhere, so it will get out of the way as you rotate the waist, but it will also kind of sit right in that little spot, right in there when the waist is straight. The hips can kick forward. They kind of, because it's like a V shape in here, the hips do kind of go out as you kick forward, but they can kick forward and out slightly to about 90. Go back. You don't have to kick out as much for backwards, but the dyno head can get in the way. You can go back and go out to a little bit past 90. You get a thigh rotation just above the knee. And then for the knees, you've got that double joint in the double jointed ratchets there. You can kind of go back a couple of clicks with the lower joint, and then a couple of clicks with the upper joint, and that gets you basically 90. Or you can just use the one joint, and that seems to, I think this is less awkward, so that's kind of how I prefer to use it. But like, yeah, you're getting it basically 90 degrees on the hip, on the knees, no matter what you do. And then for the feet, they are technically on ball joints, and then there's also like a hinge in here, so there's like a little swivel hinge in there, and then a ball joint up there. So you can kind of shift them up and down a bit. You can tilt them left and right a bit. You can go up and down a tiny bit, but mostly it's just for the toe tilt. And these bits on the back here are basically like these you pull out for some reason, but it seems completely redundant. But like these are the heels really, but yeah, it gets you a little bit of toe tilt. So he at least looks like he's standing flat when you've got his legs apart a little bit. Yeah, he is big and intimidating and cool, and I like him in blue. Also, I don't have his shield accessory out. It's the same shield accessory that came with Vanilla Vulcan. He's also got the sword accessory that came with Vanilla Vulcan, and this can peg into the shoulder if you want. It can peg in back here if you want to do that. Much, much better choice in my mind is he's got these peg holes on his hips. You can peg the sword into either hip. So it's like he's got it almost sheathed at his hip. That, I think, looks really cool if you're not going to have him holding it. But he also looks really cool if he's holding it. And that is just a matter of... There's this piece here that hinges in and out. So you just fold that out, close up the fist, and then this just slides into the fist because it's just like a little peg hole. So slide that in, and then you fold this back up and it pegs over the handle piece. And now that sword is not going anywhere. And he can hold it and look intimidating because he is a big dinosaur robot person with a very big sword. So yeah, as I've said many times, I keep bumping the camera. As I said many times, I really, really like this figure, and I'm really glad that I was able to get it in G2 Blue. It still has there are certain aspects to it that I do think could have been better. And the plastic on this just doesn't feel quite as sturdy as the gray version, which again, I'm not saying this feels cheap or anything. It just doesn't, it's a little creaky. But it's really cool, even with its mild drawbacks. Anyway, here is regular size comparisons. You can see he's way bigger than a tall Voyager. And of course, that means he's also way bigger than a relatively standard modern deluxe. Because of course he is. There we go. And also, of course, he is way bigger than the Duck Tank. And that does it for Planet X Vulcan again, and the G2 color scheme. And yeah, I don't think there's any wrong way to get this figure. It's a great figure no matter what version you go with. I almost got the black and purple repaint that Planet X did a little while back that was like a Nemesis-ish color scheme. I think they were trying to say it was Shattered Glass, but it was not. It was way too bland and dark for Shattered Glass, because Shattered Glass Grimlock, from what I remember, has more of like a Trypticon color palette, and it did not have that kind of color palette. But like, I almost got that, decided against it, but then I end up with this, and I'm exceedingly happy with this, even with some of the little, like, you know, difficulty with the toe transformations and backpack being out of whack, which, you know, that's an assembly issue, and there's no way I'm going to be getting a refund or a replacement for this, so it's fine. It looks a little crooked from the back. I can live with that. But yeah, this is a really cool figure, and I love that I was able to get it in this color scheme. And it's been well over a year that I've been thinking I should make a video on this, so I'm glad I finally did. So that has been my look at Planet X Vulcan again, but now in blue. What do you all think of this guy? Whether it's the mold, this color scheme, any of the other color schemes that they've done, whatever. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in whatever the next video ends up being.